$5 worth of ingredients, I was able to make all of this. This is homemade tofu, and then veggie burgers made with that same soybean pulp. I made seitan from wash the flour, and then I used that wheat starch to create a breading for it and to make pancakes. And I still have some leftover wheat starch. This is 1 kilo of bread flour. I got this for like $2.70, and this is about 2 cups worth of dried soybeans, which is about $1.70. Soak your soybeans, they're going to double in size. So I started out with soaking my soybeans overnight, and then I'm gonna rinse it off, and then we're gonna put it in the blender. All right, now I have like this really big cheesecloth, and I'm just going to line my bowl that I'm gonna cook the milk in. Just to save on dishes, I'm just gonna strain the milk right into the pot that I'm going to simmer it in. To blend my soy milk into batches, just because it needs to be, the water needs to be thin enough to be able to pull the protein out of the soybeans. I'm going to turn this okara, or the soybean pulp, into kind of like a falafel type of veggie burger. So to make it more burgery, I'm gonna add in half a beet. I also just have half a beet left over. And then I'm gonna do a can of chickpeas. Chickpeas are like 80 cents, so like go for it. I'm also gonna add in some garlic, a little bit of onion, and then we'll like load it up with spices and seasonings too. I also have some like dark mushroom soy sauce, which is super good for things to be like extra savory and umami. So delicious. I'm just gonna do a couple tablespoons of that. And then we're gonna add a little bit of mushroom seasoning in addition, just to get that really deep umami. Just to add some healthy fats and to make it bind a little bit better, we're gonna add some flax seeds and chia seeds. If you don't have both, you can use one or the other and just like double it up. But I like both because they both have slightly different nutritional profiles. Lastly, I'm gonna add some tomato paste just to give it a little bit more umami. But I'm only doing like a tablespoon worth of it, so not too much. Or as much as I'll get out of this tube. So another great way to save money is to buy your mushrooms in bulk. I got a whole kilo of these dried shiitake mushrooms, so just using like a few of these doesn't cost very much. And now I'm gonna add a little bit of breadcrumbs. I'm doing, looks like maybe a cup worth of this. Let's mix this. I like taste a little bit of this mixture and it's not salty enough. Go ahead and add either more mushroom seasoning or more soy sauce to this. I'm using panko breadcrumbs for this just because it adds like a really nice texture. So here you have an option where you could like form these like falafels if you want to eat them like little nuggets. I am going to form them into patties because I want to make this into a sandwich. Do something kind of like, it's gonna be like a falafel-y kind of burger patty. I heated up the veggie burgers in 2 different batches, so I have the other half going in the oven right now, but otherwise these are ready. And while I've had these cooking, I've been heating up my soy milk, and you know that it's ready once it's like, it either begins to boil, but I have it at like set to super low, just so that way I could be a little more hands off of it while I made the patties. But it starts to go from like this grassy beany flavor when you first pour it in to this like sweeter, nuttier kind of a smell, and then you can tell that it's done. So this is smelling delicious, and it's nice and hot, I've been stirring it pretty consistently to make sure that the bottom doesn't burn. But now it's time to curdle the milk so we can turn that into tofu. This is magnesium chloride. To save money, I bought this in bulk. We're only gonna need like 2 tablespoons of it. So don't be weirded out by like, what's magnesium chloride? All that magnesium chloride is, it's like those Epsom salts. And because like it'll affect the pH of the milk, it will make it curdle. So I'm doing about like 2 big tablespoons, maybe like 2.5 tablespoons. And you need to be aware that this has like a slightly bitter flavor, but I like using this to curdle my milk instead of like vinegar or lemon juice or anything like that, because this is a great source of magnesium. And I feel like everyone's stressed. I'm stressed. I bet you're stressed. Magnesium helps you reduce your stress. It makes you more chill. So it's a great thing to add to your soy milk to make tofu. But to make the flavor taste better, I'm going to add a little bit of regular like table salt and a little bit of sugar just to like help cut the bitterness. So I'm doing about a small teaspoon of sugar. This is like raw turbinado sugar. It just tastes so much better. And then a little bit of about a teaspoon of salt. And if you want to get creative, you could even add like a little bit of mushroom seasoning to this if you want your tofu to taste mushroomy. It's kind of a fun experiment I've done before. So now we're going to dilute this mixture with a little bit of water to make it dissolve. I only add a little bit of water, so like this is maybe a 1/4 cup, just to make sure that all the salts dissolve. So that way when you pour it in, it's nice and even. The curds are evenly dispersed. I'm going to press my tofu in my tofu mold. If you don't have a tofu mold, you could just line a cheesecloth inside of like a big bowl and then press it manually with your hands. But because I want my tofu to be square shaped, I'm going to be using this nice little mold that I have here. All right. And then I'm gonna ladle it in to this little block. And then I'm doing it over the sink, just that way all this water is going to pour off. Once all the curds are scooped into your mold, you're going to fold it up into the cheesecloth and then gently press out the water. You could also put in like a weight over it, and you want to let it sit for about a half hour or so it can really firm up. Pour your tofu on a plate or in a bowl because it will continue to leak. Whole wheat bread flour, I'm going to show you some vegan meat power. I only spent $3 on this bag of bread flour, and we're gonna turn it into some plant-based protein. About 4 cups water with the 1 kilo of bread flour. Sorry, my allergies are so bad. I'm staying in this place that has like a really bad leak. I'm pretty sure there's mold in here. I'm super allergic to mold, so I apologize. I'm sniffling. All right, so I let this dough ball sit in salt water overnight, and I just rinsed it out because I want to save all of the wheat starch. I mean, like you could like wash it with the salt, but I normally don't save like the super salty wheat starch. It's a little cold, but the gluten seizes up really nice. So I'm just like gently massaging it. For anyone that's not familiar with how to wash the flour, you just go really gentle so that way it doesn't fall apart. Like a really common thing that I hear from people with like washing the flour is that the dough ball falls apart right away. And it does get looser. So like, and if it does, if chunks break off, you just smoosh it back together. So I'm just gonna very gently just kind of like squeeze it under the water. And then another common question that I get with washing the flour is, when do you change out the water? Because like the water's already starchy, right? Like you see this, but you can keep going, and I keep going until the water's like really, really thick. Like literally to the point where it's like the water is mostly starch, I guess. I don't know how else to explain it. I'll do like a close-up so you can see. Whew. You're gonna keep massaging or kneading the dough in this starchy water until all of the pockets of starch are completely gone and it looks webby like this. So what I'm going to do is add some like vegetarian chicken bouillon to like my actual gluten, and then we're gonna simmer it in a vegan chicken flavored broth. This is totally optional, but I'm adding in some of the gluten to a blender. I broke it up into little pieces, and then I'm gonna put a bouillon cube into it, and then also I'm gonna add in a little bit of nutritional yeast flakes just to like really get the flavor in. Kneading the bouillon into the gluten itself is kind of tricky. It doesn't all the way absorb, but if you blend it in and just do a little bit, because otherwise it's gonna really upset your blender, it really helps get that flavor in. So I'm just going to do like maybe like a 1/4 cup of this nutritional yeast flakes with like one of the vegan chicken bouillon cubes. All mixed in. The blender did break up some of the gluten. You can tell that the texture is pretty different between the two. I mean, also adding the nutritional yeast flakes softens it a little bit. So we're just gonna knead these two doughs together. Making seitans almost similar to making bread, where we're laminating the dough to create the layers, to create that shreddy texture. So instead of making bread, we're making wheat protein gluten. So I'm going to be knotting it together after I rolled it up, and this really helps create that nice shreddy texture that is really desired in chicken type foods. So even twisting it a little bit helps increase like the shreddiness of it, but otherwise just like really thoroughly like braiding it and weaving it, the more texture that you can get through the knots, the more texture you're going to have in your end result. And then I like to fry the exterior just because it helps it from expanding too much and it keeps it nice and tight. The stock sock also helps improve the texture quite a bit. And then I'm making like my chicken flavored bouillon. So I'm just doing some onions and garlic, shiitake mushrooms, and then vegan chicken flavored bouillon cubes just to flavor everything really nicely. Oh God, these allergies. All right. So we just washed the flour and fried up our seitan. So now I'm gonna jar up this wheat starch, because as the wheat starch settles, there's gonna be water that comes on the top that you can pour off. And I'll show you one of like my favorite recipes to make with the wheat starch. I'm gonna do pancakes with it just because you use the most of it up. But you can use wheat starch as like a thickener for gravy. You can, or like for your soups. You can also use it, like mix it with all-purpose flour to make pasta. There's a lot of possibilities with this, but I'm gonna show you how to make pancakes with it tomorrow after I let the water kind of like separate from the starch. It's just a lot easier to work with. Otherwise, it's just way too runny and there's just so much. I let my wheat starch rest in the fridge overnight and it's separated a lot. All of this water we don't really need to use. But if you're one of those people that's like, oh my gosh, washing the flour wastes so much water. Well, this water that you see here is the water that would technically go to waste, but you know, what's to stop you from saving that water? And then you can reuse it to make more vegetable broth for your next batch of soup. It's just gonna have like a slight like wheat flavor, but often you add a little bit of starch to a lot of like your soup broths to help thicken it. So why not? So I have like a jar that I'm just gonna pour this water off. And then I'm gonna save this wheat starch to make pancakes. So this can go for your broth, go for pancakes, zero waste with making wash the flour. No water needs to go to waste. Another thing that you can use this water for is literally to like make more bread. So I bake a lot of sourdough. I'm thinking I'm going to rehydrate my next batch of sourdough with this leftover wheat water. Like, I think it looks like wheat water. Like, it looks like tea almost. Like, I don't know, it smells like wheat. So why not add it to my next batch of sourdough? I think it'll just make it even better. But yeah, it's kind of crazy like how much of the starch like separates. So I'm just gonna dump it all in. Especially since like I used whole wheat bread flour to make my seitan. And I just did that so that way my seitan has more like vitamins and minerals in it, because otherwise like with regular wheat flour, you know, they kind of separate the bran, so you're not getting much mineral. I'm trying to live the healthiest life that I can while still enjoying myself, so I like the extra texture. And also, it's kind of crazy. I found that using whole wheat bread flour has a more shreddy texture compared to regular bread flour, so it's another perk. We had poured off the water off of the wheat starch, so it's relatively thick, but you still want to like shake up the jar because the nature of the wheat starch is it really likes to settle at the base. So shake it up just to make sure that it's like kind of like an even batter. And here we go. Let's do a full 2 cups. Olive oil, I would recommend using like vegetable oil or saffron oil or even avocado oil because it has a more neutral flavor. But I'm all out of that and I'm moving in like a week, so I'm like hesitant on buying more food that I need to move. So we're just doing olive oil because that's what we have. So I'm doing like about 1/3 cup of olive oil to the 2 cups of wheat starch that's in here. Now we're gonna add about a teaspoon worth of sea salt. So like that's about a teaspoon. I don't have measuring spoons, so personal preference. I also like to add a teaspoon of sugar. Okay, about a teaspoon. This thing, it makes it taste a little bit nicer. Tablespoon worth of vinegar. I recommend doing apple cider vinegar just because it tastes a little bit nicer, but I am using just regular white malt vinegar because that is what I have. That's like about a tablespoon. Let's do, okay, 1.5 cups of plain all-purpose flour. Lastly, we're gonna add a little bit of baking soda. We're gonna do about 1/2 teaspoon's worth. Then you can also optionally add like a 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder just to help make it a little bit fluffier. But I found that the baking soda with the vinegar does a lot. Make these pancakes fluffy. Alternatively, if you have sourdough starter, you could add a little bit of that to your pancakes to make them kind of like sourdough discard pancakes. I really like the flavor it adds, so I'm gonna add just a little bit. I need to like discard my sourdough so I can refeed it because I wanna bake some bread. So I'm gonna add like, I don't know, man, like 3 tablespoons worth of sourdough discard. Yeah. And again, this is totally optional. You know, if you don't do sourdough, you don't need to do this. Speaking of other fun options for your pancakes, at this point you could add in a little bit of vanilla, you could add in a little bit of cinnamon, you know, it's whatever tickles your fancy here. Sometimes I like to make my pancakes a little bit savory so I could actually eat them with like vegetables. I know, it's crazy, but it's kind of like, you want to make okonomiyaki, just leave them like this. And what you could do is just like add a bunch of vegetables to a pan and then pour this pancake batter right over it and then flip it. It's delicious, especially if you have like some sriracha mayo with it and like vegan fish sauce. Chef's kiss. Otherwise, if you want to have like sweet pancakes, here you could add some vanilla and cinnamon. The world's your oyster. Do what you want to do. I'm going to show you how to make both. So I'm going to start with this pancake. So what I'm going to do is put all this veggies in here. Ideally, you would just add all of your vegetables in with the pancake batter directly. The batter in with the vegetables. Since we made our vegetable pancakes, so like if you wanted to like have these the Japanese way, you would want to do like sriracha mayo. There's like the special there's a specific sauce that goes really good on these vegetable pancakes, along with like mayo and green onions and all that stuff. So you could have them that way. All right, the other way that you could do this is traditional American style pancakes. And these are American style because I make them thick. I like my pancakes thick. I'm from the Midwest and I grew up eating thick pancakes anyways. So I'm gonna add a little bit of vanilla extract. I'm doing about a teaspoon, maybe like a teaspoon and a half. I'm using a whisk. I simmered my seitan last night and I took it out of the fridge just now so it's nice and cool. I still have this giant thing of broth, which is gonna be awesome to make soup with. So I'm gonna shred this up. As I'm shredding these up into, and I'm going to like bread them and then fry them and coat them in hot sauce, I'm doing pretty big chunks like this. I saved some of my wheat starch so I can bread these the seitan wings. So I'm gonna use this jar of wheat starch. I think this is about, what is this, like 2.5 cups? It doesn't really matter too much to be exact. Like this is literally just gonna be like a nice little breading. Add a little bit of oil to my batter, so, or not batter, like my wheat starch. I'm gonna do like maybe like 2 tablespoons worth of oil. And then in another bowl, I'm gonna do some like panko breadcrumbs just to add like some nice crunch. I'm adding like a pre-made like spice mix. This is a peri-peri garlic rub. You could literally just do like a blend of like garlic and onion seasoning and just like your favorite spice blend mix. I can post like a little like spice blend thing if you want to do that instead. But otherwise, just use like a pre-made one like this. We're just going to batter it like we would any other way. So instead of like an egg dip, we're gonna do like a wheat starch dip. So we're just gonna dip it in this, back and forth, and then fry it. Except for in my case, I'm gonna air fry it just because I want it to be a little healthier. So I just breaded all of my seitan chicken, a small amount of oil on it, and then put it in the air fryer. I had done air frying these seitan wings. So the original plan was just to like coat these all in hot sauce and then dip them in other sauce, but they're really good on their own. This is a lot of food, so I'm gonna have to prioritize all that. But isn't it exciting to save so much money eating a plant-based diet? Like, this is why I buy my own soybeans and why I make wash the flour, because economically, this is just the way to go. If you like making vegan recipes from scratch, or you just want some more plant-based food recipe ideas, be sure to subscribe and like this video.